Nice. Welcome back to the Skilled Builders Guild. Thanks again for watching. It's episode 117 of What's on the Bench Weekly. And if you're not familiar with this series, it's where I take you through the projects that I'm working on. And we had a bit of a week off. I was in Paris, going through the catacombs, looking at skulls. Perfect trip. Except for the violent 36 hours of vomiting, it was a really amazing trip. I don't think I'm going to blame Paris for that. That was probably just something I caught on the plane. Anyway, had a great time. I meant to shoot a video of a car. This little guy right here, this Tamiya Citroen DS. What is this chassis? This is the Ep.117 chassis. I painted and built this car in 4 hours. Saturday night. We left on Sunday. I brought this with me. The whole point was to drive this and have some fun with it and make a video while I was there. But that whole weather and vomiting really got in the way of that. So took this all the way to Paris, brought it all the way back. Still hasn't been run. What a shame, really. But a very nice car. I will do a running video on this as soon as the weather improves here. And yeah, this was a fun one. Not really technically what's on the bench, because it's not on the bench anymore. It never really was. There was no time for that. But a very nice car nonetheless. And if you are looking to get a fun, easy to build Tamiya kit, check out the Ep.117. And I've been told, thanks to my members, now I don't even have to segue. They can just start showing up right here. Thanks to all of my members for correcting me and telling me the Citroen DS in real life is front-wheel drive. Just like this chassis is. I thought it was rear-wheel drive. I don't know why. But it's not. It's front-wheel drive. So thank you to all of those members. And if you like to get a sneak peek on things that are happening here on the bench or in the workshop or while I'm away or how sick I got, you should join up the channel membership here on YouTube, where we share all kinds of behind-the-scenes content and how-tos, tips, and tricks. It's really quite a good place to develop a really cool community, and that's what we've done there. So check that out. Thanks to all of these ding-dongs for participating. All right, on to what's actually on the bench. First things first, here's the Volvo C303, the Umagine printed project, which is taking place on the SBG forums and on our Discord. You can participate there. Lots of people have. We've got dozens of these being made. I have made a lot of progress since the last time you saw it. As you can see, it's not all one color anymore. I have done a whole thing here. A lot of stuff happened. The rust technique worked so brilliantly well. Let me just hold it up here so you can get a look at the roof. That roof looks really, really gross. I could not be happier with how that turned out. It looks really, really good. That's actual real rust, and that's going to keep getting rustier because of the technique that I used to paint that. I used a technique that's known pretty well in the modeling community as chipping. And while it didn't work perfectly as I thought it would, I think it actually turned out to be better. And I'll explain. What this chipping method is essentially laying down your rust coating or paint or whatever you choose as the bottom layer. And then you spray the entire thing in a nice thick layer of regular everyday ladies hairspray, water soluble, as most, I think all hairsprays should be if they aren't already. But what that allows you to do is have this sort of water soluble layer between your base layer and your top layer, which is going to be your top coat or your paint color. In the case of my experiment, I used real rust paint, the sophisticated finishes, as my bottom layer. To activate that rust, I used a combination of vinegar, salt, and thanks to Turks and Jerps, a little bit of hydrogen peroxide. It'll actually speed up the rust process to be almost instant. It's pretty cool to watch it happen, and I've got video that we're probably, hopefully, playing all the way through this. But one One thing that came out of that was just this really beautiful rust coating all over it. It looks really, really good. But what I wanted to do was have that rust exist underneath the actual top coat of paint and still rust over time. Best way I could consider to do that was the chipping method. So once I had that nice quality rust all done, I did my hairspray coats. I did 2. I probably should have done 3, maybe even 4 thicker coats to get a proper chipping technique. And then I painted my top layer, which is this XF71 Tamiya. They call it, what do they call it here? Cockpit green, which I think is probably pretty accurate. It looks excellent and it works really, really well. As you can see, it's a nice retro inspired green. I think it actually works quite well for a C303. These are made in the, 60s and 70s. So this color's pretty accurate to that time era. I think it actually shows the age pretty well of the truck and looks quite nice on there. So you do a nice medium to thin coat of that paint, and then using regular everyday warm tap water, use a brush to start to remove that paint. And luckily I had a lot of salt crystals form on that base layer of rust, so it actually did a really good job of creating a nice texture. And when you rub away that paint, it reveals all that rust underneath. And now that that rust is exposed to the air, anytime we take this truck out into the elements, it's just going to continue to rust more. It's actually a really great technique. I highly recommend it. It works super well. Because I didn't use quite enough hairspray, I didn't get the actual chipping technique that I was initially after, where big chunks of the actual paint would come off to reveal that rust-based layer. Unfortunately, I just didn't have enough hairspray on there to get soluble enough to kind of remove that top layer of paint. And there was a lot of texture too. I find if it's a nice smooth texture, that chipping tends to work a lot better. When it's roughed up, the paint tends to grip into all those little rough areas. So I think maybe I could have done even more, maybe even done a clear coat if I didn't want the rust to continue to work. But because I did, this was the best outcome, and I actually think it turned out really, really good. I'm quite pleased. I think it looks really, really awesome. I think it's just going to add to the overall realism of this truck. A lot of people tend to argue, you can just take it out and get it dirty. That's weathering. I don't think that's really the same. You don't get this same level of pitting and texture from outdoor driving than you would from a proper weathering job. And I will never forego this type of work for the easy way out. So if you're looking for the easy way, take it outside. If you're looking for the more accurate way, do this. In these colder months, it's more difficult to paint because I do a lot of my painting outdoors. It's what I like to do, and I've had great results over the years, so why stop now? Plus you get to be outside, which is also nice. But when I can't be outside and weather like this time of year, I do a lot more airbrushing. And that was how I painted this cab, and it's how I'll paint the rest of this truck. But this time around, I was offered a new airbrush courtesy of Gaalheri. I'd never heard of this company before, but they have partnered up with a YouTuber that I'm familiar with, Barbados Rex, who does a lot of mech and painting and airbrushing demos. Really excellent page. I will link to that down below. I also will link to this airbrush set. This is the Swallowtail Collaborative Edition from Gaalheri and Barbados Rex. And this is a really nice airbrush. I was super surprised at the quality and the weight and the craftsmanship of this Ace Series single action gravity feed airbrush. And there's a little bit of air left in there, not too much, but this was really, really fantastic to use. As the set comes, you get 3 different needles. You get a 0.28, a 0.5, and a 0.7 millimeter. So you have a lot of different spread in terms of the amount of paint that you can throw all at once. And because this is what I would call a single action, it's not technically a single action because you do have some control over the amount of paint that comes out. It is, because of this trigger action, a little less, say, accurate than a typical dual action style brush that I'm familiar with. But I do like the handle. I think it's really easy to use, really easy to hold on to, and it throws a ton of paint, and it does a really nice smooth job of it. I got a really good even coverage on the cab, and I used the 0.7 needle to get more paint in terms of volume of paint on the model at once. It's a really nice airbrush and it's got a really good action. It's, for the money, surprisingly almost as good as my Iwata, and that is a pretty premium airbrush. So if you're new to airbrushing, this might be something that you might want to take a look at. It comes with everything you need. In the box, you're going to get all of the needles. You get 2 different gravity feed cups. You get some lubrication. You get extra gaskets, as well as a quick disconnect male fitting. I don't have the type of hose that allows for a quick disconnect. I would like to get one though, because now that I've got 2 airbrushes in my arsenal that I'm really happy with, it would be great to be able to swap back and forth quite easily without losing a ton of air pressure. I can highly recommend it. The Swallowtail Triple, I think that's what they call this one. Yeah, because of the volume of paint, it works really well for doing an entire body. I would never usually recommend an airbrush for a whole body, but because of the amount of paint you can throw with a 0.7 millimeter needle, you really are able to get a lot more paint out and in a much more uniform way. This worked great. I was really happy with this. There'll be links down below. My thanks, of course, to Gaalheri for sending me the Swallowtail. They mentioned also they're going to be sending me their more compact compressor, which is more of an actual desktop style compressor. I'll be curious to see how that works. And of course, we'll follow up on what's on the bench episode in the future when that arrives. All right, now that we've, I was going to say now that we've exhausted everything on the Volvo for this week, I couldn't have been lying more. You may have noticed there's a couple additions on here. These are all 3D printed parts, but they're resin printed parts. I've got a new resin printer. I'm not ready to divulge quite yet my findings. It's still very new. I've only printed a few things on it, but resin printers make such a world of difference when you're doing a model like this and you want to have good accuracy and you don't want to use an FDM print. FDM prints are great for large stuff, not super detailed, depending on the quality of your printer, of course, and how much sanding you like doing. But with a resin printer, you can get some really fantastic results. As an example, here's a steering wheel. As you can see, this is an FDM printed steering wheel, and it looks pretty darn good. My Bamboo Labs X1 Carbon is a fantastic printer. If I had gone down to a 0.2 nozzle instead of the 0.4, this probably would look even better, but it would have taken quite a long time to print, even on a Bamboo. And there is a certain amount of texture that you can't really get rid of because you need supports, and there's only so much you can do to really kind of get rid of all that stepping. You can see that there in that piece right there. Here's the resin example, which is, gosh darn it, that's just amazing. It's perfect. No sanding required. Just pop it on your model and you're done. This sort of thing is where a resin printer really shines. And I've got a whole bunch of objects that I've started printing. Here's the muffler for this C303, which looks fantastic. What else have we got here? Here's another example between a 3D printed part. This is for these placards. These hold these little like safety placards that are on the front of these trucks. That looks like crap. Here it is resin printed. You can tell it's a huge difference because there really isn't in any real remarkable way layer lines. It just disappears because these things they just print. You design a part, however much detail you put into it, that's the detail you're going to get out of it. It's really spectacular. And the one I'm looking at right now is from Elegoo. It's the Saturn IV Ultra, which is a 12K resolution printer. It does really offer some really fantastic results. What is this? Here, hang on. Let's build this whole thing. What is this? This is the shifter assembly for this truck. And look at the quality. Incredible. Asking your FDM printer to do that would take a long time and never really get that close. So for tiny little detail parts, you cannot beat a resin printer. They are messy for sure. They require a lot more, fiddling. They can be quite fiddly. I think the title of the video when I put it out will be, "This is still an art, not a science." Whereas X1C, that's science. You just hit print, go, everything's perfect. But yeah, that's where we're at on the Volvo project. Lots of updates, lots of cool stuff happening. I am so overly chuffed with how this whole thing is looking. I can't wait to get it all wrapped up and to share those final results with you. But that's, man, we've talked about this truck for like 20 minutes. Is anybody still even watching? Who cares about Volvos? I do. All right, on to the next thing. Don't you love Jeeps? I'm not sure I do anymore. They seem to get stolen a lot. Anyway, here's the old Axial SCX-10 CJ7. But it's not so much Axial anymore. You've already seen this truck on this channel, in fact. I took out all of the Axial running gear, threw in a VFD transmission thanks to Josh and his little mount, and it made a world of difference. I even swapped to SCX-10 Pro axles to give it even more. Because I mean, the original had straight axles too, but I just liked this better because they're more performance-oriented axle. Now, it's even better thanks to Merchant Metal Fab. You may have seen this as I got all of these parts in. This is now a leaf spring converted CJ7, which is exactly how it should have been. It's so amazing. Leaf Merchant, that's his actual name, makes this conversion kit with the help of Twisted Fab Co. in the leaf spring department. So now we've got twisted leaf springs on this truck. All of these parts were 3D printed in metal, and it is an excellent conversion kit. He's got leaf spring parts for all of the major axles that are out there, Vanquish, Axial, the weird ones like these Pros. He's got them all. And this kit is phenomenal. It does such a great job of making this a much less good truck. Putting leaf springs on any truck isn't going to increase the performance, but it certainly increases what I think challenges for driving it, of course, and also scale accuracy. This truck had leaf springs. Put it on leaf springs. It looks amazing, and it just like functions so much more like a leaf sprung truck. It's got a lot of flexibility still though because of those Twisted Fab Co. leafs. This is really amazing. It's a really great kit, and one thing I maybe haven't seen a lot of people show off yet is the Bluetooth drive shafts. There is a really interesting sort of anti-wrap system going on here that Leaf's kind of invented, and it does allow for all the flexibility, of course, but it doesn't want to twist the axle too far, which is really, really good. It works well. So we'll see how it actually works once we get it outside. But overall, this was a really easy kit to install. Leafs made it so you only have to drill one additional hole on each rail to get this whole system to work. Otherwise, it's completely bolt up, plug and play, very easy to do. And he's got a great website that shows a lot of really accurate pictures so you can get this done without having to consult any sort of manual. It's pretty self-explanatory. I didn't struggle with it very much, and you know me, I'm not much of a builder. But yeah, it looks amazing. It works amazing. It also includes a whole new front hanger. There's a whole new front hanger assembly here. This is all one piece. The bumper is made by Leaf as well. He was kind enough to include that. There is spacing on there for a scale winch, which I will probably add just to make it look done. But overall, this is amazing. This is what I wanted from this. I'm so happy to have it done. What's included? Well, you get leaf spring mounts for whatever axle you tell him you need it for. All of the hangers, the rear anti-wrap assembly. You will need to provide all your own hardware. You need to drill 2 holes in the SCX-10 chassis and provide your own axles and truck, of course. Otherwise, everything you get is everything you'll need. I opted to go for a 2.2 wheel and these cut and shuts from West Desert Wheeler, so obviously they're not as tall as a regular 2.2, but I think it just kind of makes this truck look a bit more off-roady. if that's a word. You also, like I said, shocks are not included either. I just used some scalar shocks that I got on Amazon, which were dirt cheap. And I took the springs out because you don't need the springs in there. You're already getting plenty of spring from the actual leaf spring itself. So yeah, now we've got this great looking, more off-roady CJ7. Couldn't be happier with this. All the things you will need, I'll put in the link down below. You can check out his website. And that's the same for all the products that I've featured today. A very full episode. I think we got a lot accomplished. I'm very excited to be back in the workshop after a bit of a holiday, and it's just nice to spend some time with you, the camera. All right. I think that's going to do it for this week, though. Lots more stuff to come. Lots more projects in the works. I really should get on that rockabilly, because I feel like there's a We Rock event coming up soon that I should be getting ready for. Yeah. All right, that's going to do it. Thank you so much for watching. See you again next week. Maybe we'll do a live. Yeah, maybe live next week. See you then.